Retro.
Are you an aspiring Jedi, or do you dabble with the dark side of the Force?
Regardless of whether you fancy yourself a defender of the light or an aspiring Sith Lord, you're going to need a lightsaber.
Podcast Stardust is pleased to partner with Saber Masters, the creators of high-quality, durable, and affordable lightsabers.
Saber Masters is preparing to launch the Ultimate Lightsaber 2.0, and right now you can get 2 for the price of 1.
So, check out the link in our show notes and go get your ultimate lightsabers from Saber Masters.
And don't forget to use our referral code Stardust to save $10 at checkout.
And each purchase using our referral code helps support Podcast Stardust.
Hello there. This is James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continuously unexpected. So uncivilized.
Hello and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we have a guest with us on this episode. Jay, you want to do the honors and introduce who's with us this evening?
Absolutely. So with us, we have Kara DJ, who is fanzine extraordinaire author, as well as the host of her own podcast, Into a Larger World, and her website as well called Into a Larger World. And so Kara has been on the podcast quite a few times, and she's going for that gold jacket, I feel like. But we're so thrilled to have her back once again. Welcome back to Podcast Stardust, Kara.
Well, thank you so much for having me back. I'm always excited to talk to you guys and just talk about all things Star Wars, always.
Yeah. And not to forgive me when I keep calling you Kara. I've been watching The Legend of Korra lately, which is warping my pronunciation of your name. But just to pull the curtain back, we are recording this way in advance to accommodate some travel that I've got coming up. And we're going to have a general discussion about future Star Wars movies on this episode. But before we get to that, Jay, just want to remind everybody where we are on social media.
Absolutely. So we are very conveniently found on Facebook, Instagram, and X at Podcast Stardust.
And Kara, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Into a Larger World Project. Start there and everything else is linked. I'm also my podcast is called Into a Larger World on all the podcasty places.
All right. So with that, there's a line, signals boosted to maximum output, shields down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So I want to take this opportunity to just kind of talk about like the upcoming Star Wars movies that are in some stage of production. We've been talking about them here and there as news comes out about them, but we currently have a slate of 7 Star Wars movies that are in various stages of coming to us. Some we may never get, but anyways, those movies are The Mandalorian and Grogu, which we know is going into production here soon, directed by Jon Favreau. What's been called the New Jedi Order movie, which is going to be starring Rey and featuring her rebuilding the Jedi Order as we understand it. Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie, Dawn of the Jedi, which is going to be written and directed by James Mangold, which has been described as his biblical epic. That's going to be something like the 10 Commandments that takes place 25,000 years before the original trilogy and talks about the birth of the Force, the Jedi, and the like. We have a Taika Waititi Star Wars movie, which we don't really know anything about other than that he's doing it. There is a movie we've been told it's about Lando that was originally supposed to be a Disney Plus series. And then Sean Levy is going to be working on some sort of a Star Wars movie in the not too distant future. So with all that being said, Kara, what of this are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I will say, I don't know if I would call it bitter. No, it's not bitter. It's skeptical. When it comes to the future movie slates, I'm kind of like, honestly, with all of them, I'm like, sure, yeah, that's gonna happen. Like, I just feel like
Mhm.
I feel like we've been so, uh, you know, we've been told movies that never happened so many times that I'm like, yeah, great. But anyway, assuming that all these do happen, which I hope that they do, I think, I think I'm most excited for. It's hard not to say whichever one is going to involve Ray.
Mhm.
Um, I think that that has a lot of promise to it. It just could be really interesting, but at the same time, I think, I mean, a Lando movie is that would be an absolute dream come true. Um, so I lean towards that too. Uh, I don't know. They all feel so unreal to me that I'm like, yeah, great, all of them. Let's let's do it.
It is so hard to pick, and it's funny. I'm sitting over here kind of giggling to myself because it's almost as though you are the third co-host on this podcast because Dennis and I have been talking about the, Star Wars giveth and Star Wars taketh away kind of thing that's been happening with the movies here basically forever. Like you
Right.
said, we get sort of this little hint that, oh, this is going to maybe happen, and there's been talks with this director and this writer, and this is in the works and that's in the works, and then it is actually in the works, and then it gets taken away, and then there's more talk of it. So yeah, so it's kind of like Star Wars whiplash in that way, and it is hard to pick a favorite, as far as what to look forward to. I know I'm sitting here thinking about all these movies too, and I'm with you. There's different aspects of each one of the movies that I'm really looking forward to, but
Mhm.
I have a couple favorites in mind. But what do you think, Dennis?
Well, to your all's point, it is hard to get invested in any of these because, they've announced them, we got excited about them, and then they just quietly fell to the wayside or something happened that caused these movies not to, Rogue Squadron, for instance.
Right.
I left that off the list. We just found out at the time of this recording that Patty Jenkins is talking about coming back to this movie. And I'm actually very excited for that, should it happen. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame
Yeah.
on me. And so I like the idea of that movie, and I'm very, very excited for it. I hope they bring Oscar Isaac back for it, and we get an X-wing movie led by him, and they get to go, have adventures sometime after the Rise of Skywalker. But you were just talking about that new Jedi Order ish movie, whatever they end up deciding to call it, featuring Rey. What's appealing about that to me is that we can finally start moving the timeline forward
Forward.
again,
Mhm.
because as much as I love the Mandoverse and everything that's happening around the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and everything in that time period, we're filling a gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And sure, when they got rid of Legends, they got rid of everything we knew, and then there is a time period to fill there, and it's 26 years. That's a pretty good amount of space.
Mhm.
But let's start going forward with new heroes that we haven't met and the continuing adventures of these heroes we did meet in the sequel trilogy. So that's what's really appealing to me about a new Jedi Order movie, is getting that chance to move forward again.
Mhm. No, I would agree with you on that one, and I'm also at the very opposite end of the spectrum with the Dawn of the Jedi, just because of the fact that I love origin stories, and I love, something that has up to this point largely been undiscovered, in terms of Star Wars lore and really unexplored. I mean, we've got a lot of the, really old things with the basis of all of the old Sith and way back into the old Republic. But that one's got me really intrigued, quite honestly. The James Marigold movie.
Hmm.
Or Mangold, Marigold. I got flowers on the brain.
It is
James
spring.
Mangold, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I really liked what he did with Logan and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, so I'm pretty excited for that one as well. What do you think about that movie, Kara?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for that one too because I feel like there is the most almost like freedom with it because it's going to be so long before our current timelines that we have seen that like the opportunities are like the sky's kind of the limit with that one. And I also think that to mention television, the Acolyte is going to, I think, make that one even more exciting. I don't know what the Acolyte is going to do, but I think whatever it does is going to probably boost the hype for that Jedi Order movie too. Even though they're not, I don't think they're near each other chronologically. I think that the fact that Acolyte is going backwards pretty far, and then that this movie will go even further, I think they're going to end up being like connected in some type of vibe or something.
I like that idea. That's a good point.
Me
Yeah, because the
too.
Acolytes, towards the later stages of the High Republic, and that's
Right.
supposed to be about 100 years before the Phantom Menace. But they've been teasing it as like these secrets are emerging, and these dark side is starting to resurface. Which, hey, that could very easily tie it into a biblical type of story. When you think about what those stories are, you've got someone being tempted by a dark figure,
Mhm.
a dark sider, as a matter of fact. So yeah, there certainly could be to that. What do you all think about Taika Waititi and doing a Star Wars movie?
Carol, I'll let you take this one first. I have very strong feelings. Go ahead.
I don't know. I really don't. He is such an interesting filmmaker. He's so like silly, but he also is like, I feel like he could really do something special, but he could also do something insane, but also maybe both.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. It's like we have literally absolutely no info about that movie at all, I don't think, or that idea at all. So it's like, I don't know what the heck that would be.
Well, my very strong feelings are this. I love Taika Waititi. I think he's a genius. I think he
Mhm.
is a mastermind. Everything that he's done, writing, directing wise, I mean, Thor Ragnarok was completely, I mean, it was an instant classic. So,
Definitely.
that being said, I am super excited for whatever he's going to bring to the table. But I do think that there's going to need to really kind of be sort of that line there that Dennis and I have talked about Star Wars humor, and that there's great Star Wars humor, and there's well placed Star Wars humor, and then there's really cheesy and cringy Star Wars humor.
There's
And
difference.
I would like to think that Taika would be able to very well maintain that and walk that line. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the case, cuz I could just see, something coming from him almost being like a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of Star Wars, version kind of thing, which I am totally here for.
Me too.
Yeah, the reason why I brought this up is because of things you both alluded to and hit on. And one, Thor Ragnarok, amazing movie, one of my favorite movies across the entire MCU.
Mhm.
Thor: Love and Thunder, not so much.
Right,
Uh,
exactly.
Right.
it had some great moments, it had some great scenes, but the opening to that movie with the Guardians of the Galaxy is really hard for me to watch and take seriously at all. I mean, I guess I'm not supposed to because it is just so off the wall crazy that. And so I was kind of down on him for a while. Do either of you get to see Nick Skull Wins last year?
No.
No, I didn't.
Okay. So that is the movie about, and I can't remember the coach's name. It's based off of a true story where an American disgraced soccer coach, and I don't want to spoil everything, ends up losing the job for the team that he's coaching. And he's basically given this job coaching the American Samoan team, which is the worst national team in the world. No kidding.
Mm.
They lost a game to Australia by like, I can't remember exactly what it's like 30 something to 1. If that, I'm not sure if they scored a goal in that game. And so he's there. And the whole idea is that, this team is not going to be allowed to compete anymore on the international stage unless they can do something in this Pan Pacific uh, soccer tournament. It's kind of a lead up into the World Cup. And all the guy that's in charge of the team wants is one goal. He wants them to score one goal. Okay. The story is a bit of a comedy, but it also had some of the most heart of any movie that I saw last year.
Right.
Mm.
And I absolutely loved it. And so that got me invested again because he did such a great job with the characters in that movie that reminded me of what he was capable with. And I was like, I could see him
Mhm.
doing a great ensemble piece with Star Wars that way. But again, in the back of my mind, it's kind of like left unchecked. We get Thor: Love and Thunder. So, so again, I got mixed feelings about it. I think I've come down on the side that I do want to see it, but there's just that little bit of reservation at the back of my mind.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yep, yep. And I just think if that good balance can be struck, it could be the most brilliant Star Wars movie ever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think he would have to have a lot of freedom to kind
Mhm.
of do what he wants with whatever story he's given. I think that would be a big element of it too.
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, don't give him so much rope that he hangs himself,
Right.
with it. So, okay, switching gears. We know the next movie, or the first one to go to production out of this batch is The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Mm.
So, you know, it seems like we may be getting that at the expense of season 4 of The Mandalorian. How do you feel about that?
Was that true? I feel like I saw that they were still planning season 4 would, but I think it doesn't seem like that would make much sense.
The reports are all over the place,
Right,
and
it's very, like, unclear. I think the only thing
right,
they were clear about was that this was gonna be separate from whatever Filoni's movie is.
Mhm.
right, exactly.
So,
But it seems
yeah,
like Mandalorian Grogu is going into production this June. And,
yeah,
before there was a writers and actors strike last year, they were getting to work on a season 4 of Mandalorian, but that seems to have been set aside for this. So I don't know. And,
yeah.
all we can do is speculate that this is some sort of a edited down version of what season 4 would mean, or maybe it's a different project. Hard to say.
Maybe
But
that could be good. Maybe it could be good that they would have to make it a little bit tighter.
mhm, mhm,
I could see that being a good thing, and it's also we're left in a place at the end of season 3 where it could kind of go in a couple different directions. So, I don't know, I'm very curious about that. I kind of want it to be like, uh, not spin-off because they're the main characters, but
sure.
like a totally isolated adventure that's just Mando and Grogu, and like maybe they see a couple friends that we know, but it like only vaguely has to do with like the larger Mandoverse story. I feel like that would be better.
So
Mhm.
And then
basically
to
not
get
giving you a
to
cliffhanger that means,
yeah.
hey, look out for season 4 of The Mandalorian.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
What
mhm. Well, you both bring up a couple points that are making me think here because I know that, before the writer strike, as you mentioned, Dennis, there were reports that Jon Favreau actually had the entire season 4 written
right.
for
Mhm.
everything. And then, Kara, what you were mentioning about making this a movie instead of season 4 is creating that tightness, which I think is a phenomenal idea because we hate to use that word filler, but let's face it. I mean, there have been times where some of the episodes were like, okay, that was great. And there were some awesome things in there, but did we really need to like go to Plaisir, for example,
I
and
knew you were
watch
gonna bring that
them
up.
play?
Right.
Sorry, not sorry. But like little things like that. And then, my brain also wonders, especially now that, unfortunately we've lost our Grief Karga.
No.
He's not around anymore. And how is that going to impact things with, Carl
Mhm.
Weathers not being able to be part of that storytelling as well?
It's true.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's the pessimist in me, I suppose,
Mm.
thinks this is they announced all those movies at Celebration last year, the Rey movie, the Dawn of the Jedi movie, and then, the, uh,
Filoni.
Filoni movie, thank you, and yet none of them are in a position, fast enough to get filmed so they can get something out in that May 2026 time slot. And
Mhm.
so it kinda so, again, I wanna give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's just hard, as you were saying, Kara. It's just that, uh, they have not been able to deliver on the movies that they said were coming. And so it felt like we really got to get a movie out there. Well, what can we do? Well, we got these guys in house, Jean Favreau, Dave Filoni. They've been putting out stuff on Disney Plus that, for the most part, people have been liking. Especially the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian and then Ahsoka. It's not been as universally acclaimed as since we had season 1 of Mandalorian, season 2. But be that as it may, we got a director in house. We've got our chief creative officer in house that can work on this movie. We can do this. We can film a whole bunch of it in California. We can do a whole bunch of it in the volume. We don't have to worry about meshing with outside directors and writers. These guys know what to expect. We can do this and we can get it out. We can get it produced. We can take those scripts, and instead of it being about 6 hours of content spread across 8 hours, we can whittle it down to 2.5. And as you were suggesting, Jay, not have to deal with some of the episodes that are the side trips, which I think is probably a better term than filler,
Yes,
when it comes down to it, and get it out the door. And I just want a great movie and a Star Wars movie to look forward to again. The only downside to this is that I feel like a lot of the mystery, and Jay, you and I were talking about this not too long ago, and the hype and the anticipation is going to be missing because we already know our
That's
two
true.
main characters. Unlike when we had the lead up to The Force Awakens, everyone was speculating that Rey was Jaina Solo. And what was this black eye and stormtrooper armor? And how about that guy that's stomping through the forest and all of a sudden lights that crazy lightsaber? They could still do that with some new characters and a villain, I guess, but we're just losing some of that this way.
I didn't even think of that. That's interesting because it's like part of me is like, yes, maybe this is kind of like an easy route, but maybe that's okay for a first shot back in so long. Maybe they should do that where it's like something that is kind of like guaranteed to at least do something. And maybe that's a good way to like kickstart the box office again for Star Wars. But that is true. There wouldn't be as much to wonder about. And as much as I said, it would be nice if it was like kind of an isolated adventure with just Mando and Grogu and didn't really connect that much to the overall story. If it doesn't, then it's like, why not just make it like an extra long episode of Mandalorian? Yeah, that's tricky.
It is tricky. I mean, and you're never going to please everybody. I mean, that's just right off the bat. You're never going to please everybody. And the thing about the familiarity factor with some of these characters is both a blessing and a curse. Right now, unfortunately, we've got a lot of the naysayers for the sequel trilogy, and there's a lot of people that are very anti-Rey, and we had that with the prequels as well. So I almost feel like, as much as I would be excited for the new Jedi Order, and of course, Dennis and I, we've talked about this up and down and all around about how excited we are, but it's almost like I wonder if having just a little bit more time for that particular character and all of the implications for that to kind of marinate just a little longer and then explore some other things. Because I mean, let's face it, the Mandalorian and Grogu was one of the biggest like water cooler type things that happened in Star Wars in a very long time. Everyone was watching The Mandalorian. It didn't matter if you were a Star Wars fan or not. Everyone was watching The Mandalorian because everyone loved Grogu and everyone was enamored by Grogu and The Mandalorian, of course. But, so I think you've already got an amazing kind of, if not a fan base, then an interest from people that across the board, they know who these people are, and they've already got the good feelings and the good, experiences. And, and there again, I'm making my case for Dawn of the Jedi in that, to your point, Dennis, this would give us that, ooh, what if factor, as far as these newer characters that are very old characters, obviously, like 10 Commandments, biblical epic kind of characters, but yet they're brand new to us.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess this is, play devil's advocate against my own point here. By the time this movie gets to theaters, assuming it's that May 2026 time slot or release date, it will have been 3 years since we've seen The Mandalorian, unless
True.
he shows up in something between now and then that we're not aware of. So there certainly could be some pent up demand for him at that point.
Also true.
Which hey, I'm glad I'm not in charge of making this business decision. here.
Seriously, how do they even do it?
It's almost like 52 pickup. You just sort of throw all the cards in the air and see what lands. But
Hope for the best. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, in all seriousness too, Kara, I mean, back to what you were talking about with Lando, I mean, how amazing would that be to have a
Oh
Lando-centric
my
movie?
God.
And of
It would.
course, with Donald Glover's brother being on board and, putting this together, the smooth talker that is Lando, I could just see the Calrissian Chronicles just be part of this entire movie and just all of those wonderful adventures that Lando has been through. I just think is
Mhm.
incredible because that helps us revisit a lot of things from the Solo a Star Wars story era that I think were just prime storytelling opportunities.
Yes, I
Yeah.
totally agree. And I'm a big fan of I'm not a big comic reader. I'm really not. I really just dabble, but I loved the Lando comics with the whole like Lobot origin storyline.
Mhm.
That was like
Nice.
one of my favorite things. And if we could see that, I mean, I'm such a huge Lobot fan. So I would
Nice.
love that. And I think that story is so harrowing and it also adds so much to Empire Strikes Back. Um, that I think that would be so cool. But honestly, anything, literally, it could just be him like sitting in a at a restaurant like telling a story and that there's absolutely no visuals but that and I would still be happy, you know?
Oh yeah, just his memories about things.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is like, well, when is this movie going to take place? If it stars Donald Glover, is it going to be before Solo? And is he going to have the
Right.
Falcon, or is it going to take place after Solo? You could do either and have it be really fantastic. I will say this though, between Lando and Taika Waititi's movie, those are the two I'm the least confident. Not that I'm particularly super confident about any of them getting made, besides the Mandalorian and Grogu. I just feel like Taika, as for as brilliant it is, he has so many ideas
Mhm.
that he gets passionate about something, and then that's what he works on there. That's
Mhm.
what happened with Nick Skull Wins. And, we've heard from Kathleen Kennedy that, he's kind of slow to develop his movies, and
Yeah.
they've got 2 acts. They're still looking for the third. Not actually third, that it's act 3, maybe the second act, but still would be a, third act that they need. But, can he get there? Can he figure that out and get that done? The one we haven't really talked about at all, and I don't know what really there is to say about it, is Sean Levy's project. And, again, this is something that's never really been announced or discussed by Lucasfilm, but Sean Levy's talked about it quite a bit, that he's got this deal, and said that, he's got a lot of creative freedom on here, that Kathleen Kennedy has told him that she wants him to make a Sean Levy movie. So what do you make of that?
I have never even heard about this. I don't think I know who Sean Levy is. What else has he done?
He works with Ryan Reynolds quite a bit. He was
Oh,
involved in Free Guy,
Mm,
and he's
Deadpool.
working on Deadpool 3. And I guess he's also attached to season 5 of Stranger Things.
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jay?
I like his stuff. I really do. But again, it's one of those that's kind of the shadow out there, in regards to everything else. And who knows, this could be the sleeper. This could be the one that's like actually comes out and was like, hey, surprise, this one's the one that's going to be getting made. So like we were saying, you just never know which way things are going to go in Hollywood. But something we haven't even touched upon is the whole idea that Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron movie is considered to be kind of back on track too,
Yeah.
as we just found out. So, there's another one that could potentially come back into play that was previously shelved.
Yeah. Yeah. I am excited for that prospect. Like I was saying, I hope to see Oscar Isaac come back for that one. I think that would be fantastic if they could, and if not, then fine. Find us a new group of pilots, and we can have great adventures. And maybe Oscar Isaac can be the general Dameron in the background in that one, and give them some missions to go out and do. I hope he's attached to it one way or another on that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great ideas out there. Is there anything that we haven't heard about? Any type of a pet project or character or whatever you would like to see featured in an upcoming Star Wars movie?
Mhm. Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, I already said Loba.
You're right.
And I feel like I just have like TV brain right now. Like I'm just thinking about the shows and I'm just thinking about Andor season 2 because it's just all I ever think about. So,
Nice, as you should, right?
oh God, I'm just so excited. But who would I like to see? Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, Lobot, as I said.
Mhm.
Um, I well, it's sad because I mean, I think when I think of things that I want to see, I'm thinking of like more I want to see more of characters that we've met, but maybe not in a movie form. So that's hard. Like who would I want to see in a movie form? I want to see something new. That's
Sure.
that's what my gut says is like if it's going to be a Star Wars movie, I would love for it to be something just totally new.
That is an
And
answer to my question. Yeah. So that
yeah,
does work. Right.
and I think the Rogue Squadron excites me in that way because I love the Rebels and I love the Resistance, and I feel like so much of like my head canon and like Star Wars fantasy world is like just thinking about what like the day-to-day life was like for just regular rebels that weren't like the big stars of the show. So I would love to see some of that.
Okay. How about you, Jay?
I think probably number 1 on my list is to see something like Jedi Fallen Order come to life on screen,
Ooh.
and take that video game because I'm completely obsessed with Jedi Fallen Order. So, and just because I mean it's ripe for the plan, you know what I mean? I mean, you could really I mean, they've done things like this with series. I mean, look at The Witcher, I mean, there's been tons of different video games that have been brought to life. So that's probably one of my big ones. And then I would also love to see just something High Republic-esque. We've got the Acolyte coming, but I mean just something from, I mean seeing the Nameless on screen and seeing Mark Yamro on screen. I mean, come on. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. As far as Jedi Fallen Order, I don't think we're going to get an adaptation of that, but I would not be surprised to see Cal Kestis in a live action something. I
Mhm.
The actor's name is escaping me at the moment, but
Isn't it Cameron or
yeah, something like that. I can't remember exactly. But I think it was at the last celebration. There was an interview done sometime there, and he basically said, "There's been discussions, but I can't talk about it."
Mm.
And so, we know we're getting a third game in that Jedi series, but I
Mhm.
feel like there is room to expand that story with some additional adventures. We got the Battle Scars novel that takes
Oh,
place in
for
between those
sure.
first two games, so they can do stories for that character in another medium, and so we'll see. Yeah, Jay, I'm a little surprised you didn't bring up Darth Bane in your
Mhm.
answer to that question. I think that would be a great
That would
character.
be another one. Yep, and
Yeah,
it's Cameron Monaghan, by the way,
there you go.
before it escapes my brain pan again.
I kept wanting to
Uh,
say Moynihan, but I
yeah,
knew that was not right.
mm.
The
Yeah,
other one
Darth
that,
Bane and Zana on screen, oh, yeah.
yeah, the other one that I've got mixed feelings about is that I want to see more Luke Skywalker when it comes
Mm,
down to it, and there is still a ton of time that has not been explored between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens with that character. But Mark Hamill says he's retired from that role, and not that I was expecting him to come back and do the whole thing, but he was involved with the motion capture and some of the voice stuff that was done in his appearances in The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett. But if he's not going to do that, do we want that? I mean, I there's split views as Alden Ehrenreich doing a Han Solo and a solo movie. So can we do a Luke Skywalker movie without Mark Hamill? I guess is the point I'm getting at, and that's just kind of my regret when it comes to sequels is that when we got to see Luke again after all these years, so many of us wanted the Jedi Master that was being the Jedi Master, and what we got was the broken Jedi that had to go through a redemption, which was a fine story, but I can't help but wonder if we had had an opportunity to see him at the height of his powers before The Last Jedi, if some of that conflict wouldn't have been there.
mhm. Would you be open to seeing something done like that in animated form if it was done well?
I
Instead of trying to get,
suppose.
Mark Hamill to do, like, deep faking or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, but I don't know. I think I want to see animated on TV. I'm not sure that I want to see animated Star Wars necessarily on the silver screen when it
Mm,
comes down to it. And I
Mhm.
that's
don't
fair.
have a real rational basis for that.
Yeah, I mean, I am I'm always hesitant to say like no, absolutely not to something, but I like deeply don't want I I want us to let Luke go. Um, I would love for more of his stories from that time period that you mentioned to be told in novels or in comics, but I so deeply I don't know why I feel so strongly about it. I think it's because I love Luke so much that I just want it to be what it is now.
Mhm.
You know, like
Yeah.
it happened. His story has kind of been told. We can fill in the gaps in literature, but I just don't. I liked the deep fake was very well done. The young actor was great. Their technology is incredible. I just don't want any of that in Star Wars. And
Mhm.
I certainly would not be upset. I would never be mad or anything, but I don't want a young Harrison Ford. I thought it looked really weird in Indiana Jones. I'm sorry. I thought it looked really bad. And like I just don't I personally, if you asked me, do you want it? My gut is just no, 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 no. Tell it in a
Mhm.
book. Let's get some new characters going maybe. I don't I it's such a slippery slope.
It is. And I hear you. You're basically saying don't mess with perfection.
It's
It's
it's yeah.
yeah, I get that because sometimes you're right. I mean, when you start stirring the pot a little bit, then it kind of muddies the actual purity of it, which I can see where you're going with that
And
for
it's
sure.
just like what could be told in that way that couldn't be told in a different way, like in a
True.
literature way or something like that. But I mean, I did love young Leia so much in Obi-Wan, and if there was something like that with like a Luke story when he was like that age, that could be cool, but part of me
See,
is just
this is
like
where you and I are on the opposite end of the spectrum because I don't
yeah,
want any more of that for it. Because
right.
for me, it's as much as I liked Obi-Wan, with as a great series, but how many Star Wars stories do we need where we've got our protagonist looking out after the child?
Mhm.
Where it's the
Yeah.
Mandalorian and Grogu or Obi-Wan and Leia and stuff like that. And I don't know that it can make too much sense if Luke is having all these adventures, especially if he teams up with someone like Obi-Wan, where then later he's yearning to get off the moisture farm.
Exactly, right. That's
Right.
true.
Yeah, I mean it is a challenge there. I mean, if they do more Obi-Wan Kenobi, I don't want it to have anything to do with Luke or Leia when it comes down to it.
I don't think they should do any more Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, well,
Bring
uh,
in Satine. No.
but yeah, I don't know. It's the draw for me though is when you get the movies and stuff like that. And I love the books. I get all of them and I read all of them and I enjoy them. Is that they just, despite that, they're not the community event that the movies
Mhm,
are,
true.
and that's what I'm looking for. Is and because I just think back to the this conversation's going a lot longer than I thought it was going to. But I just think back to the finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian when Luke showed up and everyone lost their minds
Oh, yeah.
about that because now it had the advantage of being a surprise and it was one of the best kept secrets when it came to Star Wars.
Yes.
I didn't see I'm not saying they weren't out there, but I have the, a habit of accidentally stumbling across rumors and things like that. And I had no clue that was coming until it did. And so if you make a Luke project, you don't get that advantage.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, it's a very delicate thing. Like I said, I can't decide what I want on that one. If because I want to see the hero in action and not just the broken man. And that's the other thing I don't want any more Star Wars projects is, it happened in Obi-Wan, it's happened to Luke Skywalker, it happened to Yoda to a degree, it happened to Ahsoka. The broken Jedi syndrome.
Mhm.
We've I really hope that's
Yeah.
not anything behind Ray's story when we get her movie either. Is that, 10 years later she's disillusioned and down on things again,
Get off
because
my lawn.
yeah, we've used that story element too many times already.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, and you both make such great points too, as far as the legacy of Luke, if you will, and how and it is so delicate and how you treat that and how you tell that story and from what vantage point and what angle you tell that story. So,
Mm.
yeah, here's another one, I'm sitting here thinking about, not to completely change the subject, but I'm thinking about something that's completely off the beaten path and all of the memes that are out there, but have you ever heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Mm.
Oh,
Wouldn't that be a fun, almost like a horror movie for Star Wars, and to be able to tell the origin story of Darth Plagueis? Because there's that book,
Yeah.
which is now considered Legends,
mm,
but I mean, how fun would that be to even just explore some of the Sith legacy? We were talking about Darth Bane, but more of just the focus of Plagueis.
yeah, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. And I feel like it's completely, if the Acolyte does well at all, it makes something like Darth Plagueis doable when it comes
Mhm.
down to
Mhm.
it. And even if you did it as, I wouldn't expect them nor want them to tell necessarily the same story in James Luceno's novel. And I love that book. I've read it multiple times and I really think
Mhm.
it's quite fantastic. But it doesn't quite capture, and doesn't have to be a hurdle, but I feel like if it's going to work as something that comes before the Phantom Menace, it somehow needs to match the tone a little bit better than it did.
Mm,
But getting, Darth Plagueis was much about Plagueis as much about Sidious, I should say, as it was about Plagueis.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't mind getting to see some of those earlier machinations of Sidious as well that set up a trade federation blockade of Naboo.
Yeah.
It could be a Rogue One type of story for the Phantom Menace.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, for sure,
yeah.
to kinda see how that long game was actually, created and what was the genesis of
Yeah,
that.
which is really what Darth Plagueis the novel was too. So,
True.
okay,
Mhm. Did
all
you get to
right.
read that one, Kara? I'm just curious.
For which the Plagueist?
Plagueis? Yeah.
I think that would be really interesting. It's it's like such an important story within the story.
Oh, highly
Um,
recommend.
yeah. Yeah, that would be really cool to see in like a long form and maybe even add more to it, or fill in the gaps.
Mhm.
Mm.
All right. Well, we got some ideas.
There you go.
Lucasfilm, hit us up. Okay, well then, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm glad we got to do this. Kind of get out there and talk about the state of movies and what's coming down the pike and some of our own ideas. So, just want to say thank you all for joining us for this, and especially to you, Kara. Again, one
Thank
more time
you.
before we go, you want to let everybody know about your projects?
Yeah, find me on Instagram at Into a Larger World Project, and that is the best place to find everything. I'm on Patreon. I have my podcast Into a Larger World, where I'm always talking to Star Wars fans, usually about Celebration, but also other things. And you can get my zines in my Etsy shop. That's in my Instagram. And yeah, that's kind of me.
All right. Well, then again, thanks for joining us for that. As for all you listening, thank you for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and our discussion of the production of Star Wars movies that are coming out here. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure you hit subscribe to Podcast Stardust on your podcatcher of choice. I'd like to remind you, you can find all episodes of the show over on RetroZap.com, which is home to several other great podcasts covering everything from the MCU to DC, Dune, Star Trek, and a whole lot more. As always, we greatly appreciate your 5-star ratings and reviews on whatever podcatcher it is that you do use to support such things, especially if it's Apple Podcasts. And please don't forget to share the show and your favorite episodes on social media with your friends. So, speaking of which, Jay, you want to remind everybody what our social media contacts are one more time?
Oh, absolutely. And once again, Kara, thank you so much for being with us. And everyone else can hit both Kara and us up at Podcast Stardust here on Instagrams. And we are also on Twitter as well as Facebook. And we have tons of other places where you can connect with us as well. So we have our Pinterest boards and our YouTube pages, which both have the regular YouTube as well as YouTube music. So you can head over there, like and subscribe to both of those. And then if you're up for some real time chatter, we're also on Discord. So if you want to go to our show notes and just click on the community tab, you are right where you need to go. And we are just one of tons of different rooms over there. All the Retro Zap shows have their own rooms, as well as some fun other geekery kinds of things. So once again, head over to our community page on our show page. And then we also have a TeePublic store where the link for that will be in our show notes. And you can get 7 different show logo designs on everything from t-shirts, sweatshirts, and pretty much everything in between. And right now we are also collaborating with Saber Masters, and you can go to sabermasters.com and you can pick up one of their amazing lightsabers. So if you head over to sabermasters.com, you can use our referral code, which is simply Stardust, at checkout, and you can receive $10 off of your order of lightsabers. And we highly recommend those lightsabers. They are a lot of fun. So the link to that will also be in our show notes. So with that, Dennis, you want to remind everybody what you've got going on right now with your other podcasts, Warp Trails, and any other projects that you have in the works?
Sure. So my wife Beth and I are talking Star Trek over on Warp Trails. We should be finishing up the 5th and final season of Discovery by the time this comes out. So look for that over at retrozap.com. Jay, what's up with cosplay?
Well, you can always catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. Tons of fun over there between all the different characters that I am very fortunate enough to embody, such as Ahsoka and Hera, 2 different versions, and also my original concept Mandalorian, as well as Leia and the 4th sister from the Kenobi series. And so once again, that is at j.snipscosplay.
All right. This is normally part of the show where I tell you what's upcoming. But again, I don't know when this is coming out, so I can't tell you. But with that, I'll just say thanks for listening to this episode of Podcast Stardust. Again, thanks for joining us. And until next time, may the Force be with you.